Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Cardwell. This is my home church, and been going here for a little bit over 22 years or so. And so I was born in Kentucky, grew up here in Indiana, and married to my wife Cheryl. We've got 3 kids. I got 4 grandsons. This year in October, we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary. I'm a businessman. I'm in the hardware lumber business. I've been a custom builder for years. We've done land development, also a realtor. I've been elected to public office, served public office a couple of terms as well, and been very blessed. I grew up in a family that grew up in poverty, but at the time that we grew up in poverty, I didn't know that. I always like to say that I had the world's greatest parents. They loved us, they provided for us, and my father was a coal miner and a welder. My mother was a nurse and grew up in a Christian family, and that's really all that we knew. But I watched the struggles of my parents throughout the years, and I saw the financial struggles. And one of the things that as a kid that you watch, you sit back and you look and you say, I really want to break this chain of poverty, and I want to make lots of money, and I don't want to go through the same struggles that I watched my family go through. So I started to, probably like many in this room, I started working 24/7 around the clock, and been very blessed in our businesses, and made lots of money, more money than I ever dreamed of ever making. And so I was very grateful for that, and very grateful for the opportunity to share that with my kids and my grandkids today. So we fast forward a little bit. It was June of 2000. I was 40 years old and been attending another church. My wife grew up in a Assemblies of God church. She was the 4th generation in that church. We was attending there, and all of a sudden, we've never done any mission trips of any kind. And all of a sudden, our youth pastor announces he's going to do a mission trip. And at that time, my middle daughter, Sarah, she was 11 years old. She was 11 years old going on 18. Wanted to be a part of the missions group and different things, and they announced this trip, and she was lobbying really hard to be able to go on this trip. And so the youth pastor said, sure, I think you'll be fine if you go on a mission trip. Just ask your parents and see if you can go. She immediately came to me and she asked me, she said, hey, Dad, I'd like to go on this mission trip. Is it okay? And I said, yeah, sure. I think it's great. I think it's a good thing. I failed to really ask my wife and asked her mother if it was okay to go. She said, where are they going? I said, well, they're going to be going to El Salvador. Well, over the next few days, this is back in 2000, over the next few days, my wife and I both were searching the internet. You Google it, and back then if you'd Google El Salvador, this U.S. State Department had no travel warnings. It was labeled the murder capital of the world. It was one of the most dangerous countries in the world. Well, to say the least, my wife was not very happy with me. But the story goes on, and then, so they're getting prepared. Everybody's excited. All the kids are excited about going on this trip. And we get to the weekend before we were getting ready to leave, and it was a Friday morning. They were leaving on Sunday. On a Friday morning, youth pastor calls me, and he says, hey, are you in your office? I said, yeah, I'm in my office. He says, well, I want to stop by. Now, I've already told him, I said, look, I'm not going on this trip. This is June, middle of the summer. We're builders. We're custom builders. At that time, we were one of the largest custom builders here in the city of Indianapolis. Lumber business is really good. I said, I cannot get away. He comes to my office, and after I hung up that phone, he said, I'll stop by. And after I hung up the phone, I thought, well, I know what this is all about. Usually when he calls me like this, it usually needs a check. Needs a little bit of money. There's probably fell short or something a little bit. He come to my office. First thing he did, he sat down and he says, look, first of all, I want to tell you I don't need any money. I said, okay. He says, I wanted to tell you a couple of my chaperones that was ready to go on this trip were in an auto accident this morning. He said, they're okay, but it knocks them out from going on this trip. And he says, I was thinking in the church, he said, we're going to be fine. We're going to go. I'm just a little short, but we'll be fine. And I'd love for you to think about going. He said, as I was thinking about the guys in the church and who had a passport and who could get away on short notice, he said, that's a very short list, and he says, you're on it. And I said, well, I already told you, this is not the good time for me to get away. I said, I really can't go. And he said, well, I just want you to pray about it. Go home, talk to your wife about it, and let's see where God leads you. So that evening, I went home, talked to my wife, told her what had happened, and immediately she says, this is an answer of prayer. You're going on this trip. So I said, okay, I guess I'm going on this trip. So we start packing and everything. We get ready, and that Sunday morning, we're off, and we're flying away to El Salvador. We land in El Salvador. It was hot, beautiful day. The kids very excited. And we were going to King's Castle's ministry. I don't know, probably a number of you have been to King's Castle's and know Don and Terry Triplett. It's a great ministry in El Salvador. We land there, we get unloaded, we start packing all of our stuff up in the bus. And it's about a 2-hour ride to King's Castle from the airport. On that ride, immediately I noticed that my daughter was sitting with one of the team leaders, one of the nationals, that was going to be our translator for the week. And I see they hit it off really well. Things were going really well. We arrive at the camp. We unload everything. We start getting up to the dorms, and we get ready for dinner. We go down to dinner, and we go down to the cafeteria there at King's Castle. And it's packed full. All these kids are there. There's kids there from really all across the country for this mission trip during this week. So I decide I'm going to step outside. I step outside just to get a little bit of peace and quiet. I go outside. Right outside the gymnasium, there's a tree there, and there's a gentleman there sitting underneath a tree, and I'll never forget his name. His name's Dan Carpenter. He was from Houston, Texas. He was retired. He was there to help Don in building some of the buildings there on the campus. I look around, and I said, it looks like this building across the street here is ready, pretty much done. I said, it's about ready to go. And he says, oh, no, not really. He said, it's been sitting that way for the last year or so. And he said it's about 90% done, but he said getting building materials is nearly impossible here, and it's very difficult. And I said, well, what is it you need? And he started talking, and he said, we need a few light fixtures, we need some plumbing, and we need a few different things. And as he's talking and saying all of this, I was thinking, everything he's mentioning, I've got tons of it sitting in a warehouse in Indianapolis. This is what I do every day. And I thought, at that particular moment, it was a kind of a light switch moment for me. I thought, well, maybe that's why God brought me here, is for this particular moment. So we went around, looked at all the buildings and different things. The next morning we get up, we go out and do ministry. So all week we're out, we're doing ministry. We're doing the gospel, sharing the gospel. We're also distributing some food and different things. Had a great week. It was wonderful. We finish up the week. We're back at King's Castle. And before you leave King's Castle, they like to always pray a blessing over your team, over the kids, over the team leaders and everything. They have a prayer tower there. The prayer tower at King's Castle, they've been praying for 25 years, 24/7, praying for people. They always pray over the teams before they send them out. I still remember that, all of the kids lining up, all the leaders, we were lining up. The nationals would come stand in front of us. They'd put a purple cloth around our neck, and they'd pray over us. The little girl that's praying for me, I'd never met her before other than that week out in the mission field. She prayed over me, and she's prayed in Spanish. But after she finished praying over me, she stopped and she said, hey, I got a word for you. And she said to me, she said, I don't know what's going on in your life, but you need to make time for God in your life. Things are too busy. Now you got to remember, I've never met this girl ever in my life. She's 15 years old, and she knew exactly where I was. I knew at that moment that was a direct message from God. That was a message that changed my life forever. I was too busy working 24/7 with my job. I wasn't spending time as a husband or a father. I was married to my work. I wasn't investing in my family, investing in God's work. And that just changed everything in my life. We got on the plane the next day. We flew back home. And I said, I will never, ever miss another opportunity in my life to be on the mission field with my little girl, my son, or my family. And ever since then, everything changed. I come home, our construction company, we were booming. I told my partner I wanted to sell out. By the end of the year, I closed that company. I sold another company that I had. And I did all of that just to free up time because I was like the gerbil on a wheel. I was running really fast, going nowhere, working all the time, not really investing any time in ministry or investing for eternity. God used that moment in my life to change everything. From that, we launched what we call the People Helping People Network. We've been in El Salvador ever since. I go multiple times every year back there. We have offices in El Salvador. It's called the Center for Hope. Since then, since that time, we've built more than 1,000 homes across the country of El Salvador. We've distributed several million meals, and we've built a children's hospital in downtown San Salvador. It's a state-of-the-art burn center. It's the only burn center serving all of Central America. And we've also opened up a culinary school to help train and raise up people to give them a vocation so that they can earn and make a living and sustain their families. We call it the Hope Equation. It's all about housing, hunger relief, healthcare, education, all multiplied by faith, working with the local church and pastors, being the hands and feet of Christ to deliver hope. That's what we are about. That's what we do. I wanted to share that with you all just for this reason. I'm sure there's many of you here doing just the same thing, working 24/7, trying to provide for your family, and maybe not taking that time that you need to take to invest in eternity, to invest in the future for your family, for yourself. I would just encourage you, if you get the opportunity to go on the mission field, to travel with your family, travel with your kids, I would just encourage you to say yes. I often think many times, what if I would have said no? My life would be entirely different. For the last 25 years, I've enjoyed every minute with a thread of El Salvador through everything that I do. If any of you ever want to travel to El Salvador and learn a little bit more and get involved in housing, hunger relief, healthcare, or education, you can join us. We have a website for the People Helping People Network. It's phpnetwork.org. As Paul Harvey would say, I wrote a book here to tell the rest of the story. There's a lot of other details here. This last year, it came out in October of last year. It was the #1 bestseller on Amazon for a few weeks. And it's about really just sharing the gospel. It's about really sharing hope. And it's a blueprint for each and every one of you. I'm just an average guy, a hardware guy, a lumber business. I'm an average guy just like any of you. Every one of you can do the same. And this is your blueprint to get started. Thank you very much for having me. I got a book here. If anybody wants it, you can have it. Right here.